iconic piece of Australian rail, the Golflander. 131873. Glenn, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I just want to comment on the Taylor Walker suspension for racism. I think it's really interesting because the AFL are constantly talking about zero tolerance for racism. They banned a woman for 2 years from attending every single AFL venue for a racist comment. And now Taylor Walker's come out and made racist comments, and he's got a six-match suspension, and during the suspension he's still getting full pay. So it's like there's one standard for the fans, and there seems to be one standard for the players.
Well, look, yes, from what you say, that makes sense. I'm not across all the details. I've had a quick look at the article. One of the articles, there's many, obviously, before you phoned. And I don't know what he said, and I don't know if anyone does, and whatever it was, I don't want to repeat it on air. But, yes, I mean, it does seem to be the case, doesn't it, that if someone on the field does something, as opposed to someone in the grandstand, there's two very different standards.
If a commentator said that he'd be sacked on the spot, if a gate attendant said that he'd be sacked on the spot,
yes,
banned for years,
yes.
But for the players, there's a whole different standard. And I think even the players' reaction is interesting because every time a person gets in trouble for racism in the football, they all come out and say there should be life bans. The bans are too soft, like 2-year bans. But now because it's a player, not one player said that, and they're all saying how, Taylor Walker isn't a racist, he's a nice guy, he's made an error. We're talking about educating him more in classes, but, I mean, where's the consistency with it?
Well, look, I think maybe the consistency needs to come in softening the bans on the fans rather than increasing. I mean, a 6-week ban is a significant ban, and maybe that should come with a financial detriment. I think he's got to cough up $20,000 and give it to an Indigenous charity or something, so that'll sting a little bit.
But he makes that per quarter.
But, well, quite right. So make the financial fine actually hurt. But look, I mean, if someone in the grandstand says something racist, then I think, maybe you take the membership away for a year, or you knock them out for 6 weeks, or whatever you would do to the player. But I agree with you, Glenn. It seems inconsistent, to say the least, to have two different standards just because one's on a salary package.
Taylor was one of the men who was saying that the 2-year ban wasn't enough and it should have been a life ban from all AFL venues. So and at the same time, he's doing that sort of stuff. And, I mean, you've got to wonder, too, if he's saying it on the field in front... This was a reserves match, but there's people everywhere.
Yeah.
If he's prepared to do that around people, what's he saying behind closed doors?
Well, no one knows, but I think in this case it was reported by a club official, wasn't it? So
that's correct, yeah.
Well done to them. But that's not an easy thing to do, I would imagine. But yeah, look, I mean, the AFL obviously take this issue, as they should, very, very seriously, because like the rugby league, there's as far as per capita concerned, there's an over-representation of Indigenous players, and they're up the absolute top of the mountain as far as the skill and the excitement level for the game is concerned. So it's only appropriate that they tackle the issue of racism head-on. Whether they've got their punishments right, well, that's still very much open for debate, I think.
I just think they need to be consistent. It's got to come out and say, it doesn't matter if you're a fan, you work at the grounds, you're a commentator, you make racist comments, this is going to be the penalty, not this, we'll throw the book at the fans and make a big song and dance about it so we look virtuous, and then when there's a player, we'll go soft on them.
I agree. No, I agree. Because at the end of the day, without the fans, and in the AFL, the fans tend to be club members, of course, without them, the money's not there for a lot of the things which fund the players. So...
right now, the clubs would be broke if the fans actually ask for a refund. Most fans have gone 2 years without seeing a game, and they've paid up. And none of them have got. I think 96 or something % have not asked for a refund. And some of these memberships cost like $800 to $1,000.
Yeah, it's big money, isn't it? Yeah.
Humongous. Yeah, and they're just paying it almost as a donation right now.
Well, it is almost like a religion. I suppose it's like the coins in the offertory bag for the Melburnians, isn't it? AFL membership.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Yes. It's a polytheistic religion. But look, no, Glenn, I see your point. I concur with your point. I think it's a very good point you make. And I'm sure most people out there would also agree that it does seem a bit incongruous that, on the one hand, if a player says something racist and says, I did it, and all that, they get, say, 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever the ban is. But if someone was to shout the same thing out from row C, they might end up with a 1 or 2 year ban from attending games. And as you say, if a gate attendant or someone did it, they'd probably be booted out and sacked. So why the inconsistency? I don't have an answer because I don't think there is one that is logical. It's a good point you raise. Glenn and I thank you for the call. Glenn there in Melbourne. 131873 is that number, of course. Trevor, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Mate, well, thanks.
Look, well, I'm not. I really disagree with these lockdowns. And I won't get into statistics or anything. I think we should open up.